The wind never stopped crying in that part of the canyon. It howled through the red bluffs like some widow spirit, dragging dust and bone across the brittle ground. Our wagon, what was left of it, had its axle cracked like a chicken bone, and one wheel off into nowhere. The mule lay dead by the mesquite tree, belly bloated and still, and my father, Otis Calder, sat in the shade of a rock, drunk before noon. I was 22 that day, but I felt older. Not in the good way like wisdom or dignity. I felt weathered like something the world had already worn out. They said I was cursed, barren, a woman who couldn't hold life inside her. I had lost a baby at 18. My husband left me 2 weeks after we buried it, told me I was like a cracked pot, couldn't hold water or children. I remember the church women whispering it like scripture, and my father, he drank that shame like it was mine to carry. As if I'd wronged him by bleeding alone that night on the dirt floor of our shack, got us into a fine mess. Girl, he slurred from under his hat. If you hadn't been born broken, I'd have grandbabies by now. I'd have had a better life. I said nothing. You learn not to answer a man like that. He wasn't looking for truth. He was looking for someone to bury it in. We were stranded just outside the Broken Rock trading post. The trappers wouldn't help. Said Pa owed them whiskey from 3 winters back. We had nothing left, no mule, no coins, no food, just me and him. It was just after midday when the Apache rider came into view. I spotted him first, a dark figure. On horseback cutting down through the bluff trail, the locals called it Ghost Ridge, that only outcasts or spirits passed through it. I'd never seen a man sit straighter on a horse. He dismounted quietly, no words. Just eyes like THUNDERCLOUDS. Otis. Stood, brushed the dust off his pants like it mattered. You speak English? He asked. The warrior didn't answer, just looked at him. Otis spat in the dirt. I need supplies. Maybe a spare mule. I got something to trade. Felt it before I heard it. He grabbed my wrist and yanked me forward like he was dragging. A sack of potatoes. My daughter, he said, as if it were a simple fact. Strong, young. Just had a bad run, oh luck, but she's still usable. I froze, my throat locked, my ears rang. I could barely see the man standing in front of me, because all I could hear was that word, usable. I looked at the warrior, hoping, praying he'd say no, that he'd walk away or shoot my father where he stood, but he didn't. He looked at me, not up and down, not leering, just looking, like he was reading something I didn't know I carried. Then he nodded once, and Otis smiled. Whiskey too, he added. None of that corn piss. They exchanged something rawhide pouch for flint, jerky, and a skin of something brown and burning. Otis never even looked back. I watched him take a drink and laugh with the trappers as I was led toward a horse I didn't know how to ride. He didn't even look at me when he walked away, not even once. The man didn't speak, didn't raise. A hand just gestured toward his horse, then walked beside me as I mounted clumsily. I nearly fell. He didn't laugh. I tried to ask him his name, but he only looked toward the canyon trail. The others at the post whispered behind us. That's Taza, one said. They say he walks alone. Even the Apaches won't claim him. A ghost walker. Another muttered, Don't belong to any band. Ain't right in the head, that one, they said more, but I stopped listening. We rode until the canyon shadows swallowed the light. The sun dipped low, painting the cliffs in copper and ash. My thighs ached from the saddle. My mouth was dry. I didn't dare ask for water, but he handed me a canteen without a word. Later, as the sky turned velvet and cold, he built a small fire. Not the kind that says camp, but the kind that says don't get seen. He laid out a blanket on the far side of the fire and pointed to another for me. Then he walked off into the dark to sleep alone. I stared at the flames. I waited for him to come back. For the moment when the mask dropped and the cruelty revealed itself, for the moment he'd act like the man who'd taken me like a trade good. But he never touched me, not that night, not in the days that followed. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt confused. The second night, under a bone-colored moon, I tried to run. I waited until his breathing slowed and the wind picked up. I slipped off the blanket, barefoot, careful as a doe. The desert is never truly silent. Coyotes, bugs, distant thunder, you can't explain. I moved toward the ravine, figuring if I could just get out of the canyon, maybe I'd find a town, a stagecoach, something. But the ground gave way. My foot slid on loose shale. I tumbled, cut my palms, rolled down an embankment, and landed hard near a dry creek bed. I sat up, heart pounding. Then I heard the hiss. A rattlesnake was curled 2 feet away, tail twitching, eyes locked on mine. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. It raised its head, and then, with a sound like the wind cracking wood, a spear slammed into the ground beside me, clean through the snake. Blood sprayed my face. I gasped as the figure stepped into view. Framed in moonlight, Tattle. He pulled me up gently, brushed the blood from my cheek with his thumb, said nothing. But in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Not lust, not pity, not shame. He looked at me like I was something else. Entirely, like maybe I wasn't cursed, or broken, or weak. Maybe I was something worth catching before the world swallowed me. I was given away like cattle. I whispered to myself later, curled in my blanket, watching him sleep across the fire, but he looked at me like I was something else. We rode for days across land that didn't care whether we lived or died. The sun blistered the skin right off my shoulders, even through the cotton of my blouse. Windstorms came like ghosts, silent 1 second, and then ripping grit into your eyes the next. Once, a buzzard circled overhead for nearly an hour. I started to wonder if it knew something I didn't. I was hungry. Not the kind you feel after missing supper, but the kind that starts whispering ugly things in your ears. We had a few strips of jerky, some cornmeal cakes, and whatever roots he dug from the dry hillsides. I watched him slice into a cactus with a blade no longer than his palm. He handed me the thick chunk, gesturing to chew slowly. It tasted bitter, green, alive. I threw up behind a rock. He didn't flinch, just handed me a second slice. When I kept nodding off and the saddlehead lolling, eyelids fluttering, he took a length of leather and tied me to the saddle horn with it. Like a sack he didn't want to lose. I hated him for that, and I admired him for it too. He never smiled, never spoke, just used his eyes, his hands, his sense of direction that never seemed to fail. He could walk barefoot across jagged shale and not leave a mark. Could find water with nothing but sky and soil. I was beginning to believe he could track a ghost across stone. Once, when the wind was low and the night was kind, he left something beside my bedroll, a tiny pouch of crushed herbs. I sniffed it minty with a bite. My lips had cracked and bled from the dry air. He watched me rub the powder gently into the split skin. Then he turned away before I could thank him. The next morning, I found a bracelet, just thin woven grass, tied with a loop. I knew it was from him. He didn't say a word. He never had to. I tried to throw it into the brush later that afternoon, angry that I'd started expecting his kindness. But I couldn't make myself let go. I tucked it in my blouse instead. The worst night came. When we found the cabin, it had once been someone's home, small. Square walls blackened by smoke and memory. The roof sagged, one corner caved in. A child's doll, half burned, lay in the ashes. Its wooden face was split down the middle. I shivered, even though it was warm. Tat approached slowly. He moved like he knew this place or what had happened here. Then I saw it. A scalp nailed to the tree beside the doorway, still with strands of gray hair, dried blood stiff along the roots. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. Oh God, was this you? He turned to me slowly. Then he did something I didn't expect. He took off his pouch, stepped forward, and touched the scalp gently. Not like a trophy, but like something sacred. Then he pulled a knife from his belt, removed it from the bark, and wrapped it in cloth. He carried it to a small hollow in the earth and began to dig. I stood in silence as he buried it, not a word. Just motion when he stood again. I saw the way his shoulders carried the weight. He pointed toward the hills and signed with 2 fingers, then tapped his own chest and his temple. I didn't understand until he whispered one word: bluecoats. Didn't answer, didn't know how, but for the first time, I believed him. That night, my dreams were of the baby I lost, a warm bundle I never held long enough. Just a glimpse before the blood came too fast, the world faded, and I woke up too. A grave that was already dug? The church women had come later, said it was punishment. Said a real wife would have carried through, that maybe I was touched wrong and clean. They said it like it was kindness. I told Taza once half asleep, half starved. I didn't ask to be born a burden. He didn't speak, but he left an extra strip of meat beside my blanket the next morning. I ate it without looking up. By the time we reached the river, I was walking beside the horse instead of on it. My legs needed ground, my hips needed rest. My dignity, what was left of it, needed space. The river was narrow, muddy at the edges, but deeper in the center. I asked him, "Do you mind?" Said nothing, just looked away. I waded in with my underdress, clinging to me like second skin. It was the first time in days I'd felt clean. The water stung where the sun had burned me, but I welcomed the pain. When I looked up, he was still turned away. That made me angry. Not at him, at everything. Silence, the staring, the way he walked 10 steps ahead like I was some stray dog following him. I climbed out, wrapped myself in the only dry blanket I had, and walked over to him. "Why won't you say anything?" He didn't move. "I'm not made of glass." "You think I'm still a coward? That I'll run again?" He met my eyes then. "I don't speak," he said, voice low and rusted, 'cause words were used to lie. I use few now. It silenced me. He looked away again, the lines around his eyes softening for just a breath. "I've been lied to, too," I said after a long pause. He didn't answer, but that night slept 2 paces closer to the fire than usual. Toward the end of our 7th day traveling together, we paused beneath a hill covered in short brush and dying mesquite trees. I followed a faint path up the slope while he checked the horse's hoof. That's when I found the carvings. On the side of a tree trunk, half covered by shadow, were small animal figures. A fox, coyote, an eagle with outstretched wings, and near the basalmost mist was a baby deer, curled in on itself. Beside it, smaller still, was the faint outline of a woman with a braid, long and looping down her back. I reached out and touched the bark with my fingertips. The wood was cool. The groove of his knife, gentle but sure. I didn't know what I was to him, but for the first time in a long, long while, I wanted to know. The storm rolled in slow, but heavy like it had been waiting all week to break loose. We were crossing a dry wash when the wind turned cold. Thunder cracked so low it sounded like the bones of the earth shifting. Asa didn't say anything. He just veered left toward a crag in the ridge, guiding the horse up through brush so thick it scraped my arms raw. That's where we found the cave shallow, but deep enough to keep the rain off our heads. He tied the horse under an outcropping and set a small fire with flint and bark he'd kept dry in his pack. I sat on a folded blanket, legs tucked under me, shivering from more than just the cold. Taza peeled off his soaked shirt, hung it near the fire. I tried not to stare, but I did. His chest was marked, not just scratches from the desert, but old things. Faded scars. A round, puckered one, just under his collarbone bullet, maybe. Crisscrossed ridges along his back. Long ones, raised and pale, the kind men don't talk about. He caught me looking. "Did they do that to you?" I asked softly. He turned his face away. The firelight danced against his jaw, casting deep shadows. "Because I didn't give them what they wanted," he said. "That was all. Not who, not when, just that I felt something tighten in my throat. I wanted to touch him. Not in lust, not in comfort, but in shared understanding." I moved closer, just a little. I reached out, fingers barely brushing the edge of his arm. He tensed. Then gently took my wrist and lowered it. "Not like this," he murmured. "When you still carry pain." I didn't speak again that night, but I didn't move away either. The rain tapped against the cave like fingers, drumming a rhythm only old spirits knew. I took the bracelet from where I'd kept it in my blouse. It was still intact, dry, slightly frayed at the ends. I held it out to him. "It's yours," I said. He shook his head. "No, it's yours because you didn't throw it away." That made me smile. I hadn't smiled in. I couldn't remember when. "Then maybe," I said. "We both kept something." He didn't smile, but something changed in his face. A softening, like the sky just before dawn. He thought we were alone. But the desert never forgets. It happened just before dusk the next day. We were riding along a dry ravine when I heard the sound, a distant clink. Metal on rock. My heart skipped. Taza stopped, lifted a hand. Stillness fell over us. Then the first shot rang out. I ducked as Taza leapt from his horse, bow already in hand. He moved like water, fast and low, vanishing into the rocks. I scrambled behind a boulder, fingers shaking. Voices echoed English. And Spanish. "Bandits." Another shot cracked the air. I peeked over the rock and saw him Taza silent. Focused, releasing 2 arrows in swift succession. Another stumbled, screaming, but then another flash. Shot. Taza cried out and went down. My scream caught in my throat. I didn't think I'd just moved. I crawled to where he lay, blood staining his side. He tried to rise, reaching for his knife, but fell again. That's when I saw the rifle. I grabbed it with hands that barely knew how to hold it. The metal was heavy, foreign. I aimed at the shadow moving toward us. I fired. The kick knocked me back, but the shot landed. The man spun and hit the ground. Groaning, the rest fled after that. The silence afterward was deafening. I dropped the rifle and crawled to Taza. His eyes fluttered open. "I got one," I whispered, shaking. "You did," he rasped, then winced. I tore his shirt with trembling fingers, saw the wound-clean entry, "No exit." I pressed my hand to it. Blood soaked through. "Don't die," I said, choking on tears. "Don't you dare." He passed out. I didn't sleep. All night I stayed by his side, cleaning the wound with water from the riverbank, wrapping it with strips of my skirt. I sang softly songs my mother used to hum when I had fevers as a girl. The fire burned low. My hands were stained with his blood. I didn't care. By dawn, he stirred. His voice was barely a whisper. "You are not what they said." I looked at him. "Neither are you." The light was soft when the riders appeared, 6 shadows on. The ridge they moved slow, deliberate, silhouetted by the rising sun. Taz sat up, pale, his skin beaded with sweat. He reached for his bow, winced, and put it down. "My people," he said, "if they see you, they might not let you go." I looked at him, my heart pounding. "Will you protect me?" He didn't answer, but he stood. He stood wounded, unarmed. Moved to place himself between me and the oncoming horses. The fire crackled once behind us, and I knew whatever happened next. I wasn't alone anymore. The Apache camp was carved into the edge of a basin, hidden from plain sight by cedar brush and stone. Smoke curled from a few low fires. Children's laughter rang faintly from deeper inside the circle. But it stopped as soon as we entered. All eyes turned to me. They dismounted in silence. The other riders looked at Taza, and then to me, this pale, dirt-covered woman, limping behind him like a ghost he'd pulled from the canyon. I felt it before I saw it. Judgment, suspicion, and in the eyes of some women, pure contempt. An elder. Man, wiry and weathered, stepped forward. He spoke in a language I didn't understand, fast, sharp syllables that made my stomach tighten. Then another elder woman, eyes like old iron, said something else. She gestured at me. The other women murmured. One came forward. A tall woman, hair braided tight, her arms marked with painted symbols. She spat at my feet. I flinched. Taza stepped in front of me. She was given, he said firmly, not asked. She did not choose the trail. The woman didn't reply, but her eyes said everything. I was a trespasser, an outsider. Maybe worse. A medicine woman came forward then, odor.com, her face soft with age but hard with knowing. She stepped close, looked into my eyes. I didn't move. She pressed a warm hand against my stomach. It startled me, but I didn't resist. She held it there for a few seconds, then slowly withdrew. Her face was unreadable, but then she turned and said something to the others. One voice cut through the murmurs. "No child." The question came in broken English, halting and low. I swallowed, the lump in my throat. They all waited. I stood straighter. "No," I said, "but I'm not empty." The fire behind us crackled once, then fell silent. The wind stilled. That moment hung in the air like smoke, and then one of the elders, an old man with eyes like river stones, nodded, just once, and no one said anything. More that night, I sat beside Taza near a fire at the far edge of the camp. Far enough from the others that we could speak without being watched. He was stronger now. The wound in his side had closed, stitched with ash and sinew by the healer. Sat cross-legged, back straight, eyes reflecting the flames. "I don't belong here," I said quietly. He said nothing. I looked down at my hands, calloused, scratched. "Steady now, I have nothing to offer," I whispered. "Not even a future. No child, no name, no home." Taza didn't speak for a long while. Then he reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a small carved necklace. It was bone or ivory aged and polished smooth by time. Shape was simple, a spiral, curved like a rising sun. "My mother's," he said. "She wore it when she carried me." I blinked back tears. I can't take that." He looked at me, steady as stone. "You already have." He slipped it over my head, and I let him. The final test came at dawn. A shout rose from the east edge of the camp and necked. Harsh. I ran toward the noise, heart already racing. Otis called her, bloody, filthy, drunk again, but this time meaner. His face was scratched raw, clothes torn from travel, eyes crazed with hunger and fury. He staggered into the clearing, waving a rusted rifle. "Where is she?" he shouted. "That damn girl's mine." I froze. Taza stepped in front of me again. Just like before, Otis raised the rifle, shaky but pointed. "You deaf Injun? That girl's my blood, my property. You hear me?" The camp was silent. No one moved. I stepped forward, not behind Taza. Beside him. "You gave me away, remember?" I said, loud and clear. "You traded me for whiskey and jerky." Otis stared, blinking, like the memory had holes in it. "You were never worth the trouble," he spat. And that's when I saw it not anger. It's not even hate, emptiness. A man hollowed out by blame. I took one step closer. "No," I said quietly. "I was never yours to throw away." Otis lowered the gun and walked away without another word. No one stopped him. No one needed to. At sunrise, sat beside Taza again, this time not because I had to, because I wanted to. The horizon bled orange and gold, painting the desert in fire. He looked at me, quiet, waiting. "Will you stay?" he asked. I thought of everything I had lost and everything I had found. "Not because I have nowhere else to go," I said, "but because this is the first place I've ever been seen." He nodded once. That was enough. We sat in silence, hands close, not quite touching. The wind shifted. The world turned. I was traded away like I was broken, I thought. Somehow I found the one person who didn't need me to be whole, to love me. Voiceover outro CTA sometimes. It takes being broken by the world to find the one who sees you whole. If this story touched, you don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Would you have stayed like she did or walked away forever? Join us next time for more unforgettable frontier tales of survival, love, and justice. Until then, keep writing forward.